Pues nada, un placer estar hoy aquí con vosotros.
It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today. The idea of this presentation is to tell to you what blockchain is about. Who among you knows what blockchain is or what it is about? Okay, I see some hands. More or less, it's also a good answer. I saw 5 or 6 hands. That's pretty good. The idea of this presentation in these next 45 minutes is to explain what blockchain is from a conceptual perspective. What we are not going to explain, because we're not going to have time, is how blockchain works, because I don't want you to have expectations. There are very different types of blockchain, but the idea is to explain in an aspirational way what this is, where it can lead, what impact it can have, but we're not going to elaborate on how blockchain works, because we would need a couple of hours to do that, and we don't have those couple of hours. So that's the objective. So I really hope that after these 45 minutes you will have these ideas clear in your mind, and hopefully you will have questions. After the presentation, I'll be outside and I'll be happy to hear your questions. So that's the purpose of this presentation. Before talking about blockchain, I want to tell you what I like to share. I am 100% devoted to blockchain, but I understand that there is life beyond blockchain. So now I'm going to talk about companies' challenges or people's challenges, because companies' challenges are also a challenge for the professionals and the people in general. I think the origin of these challenges starts with technology. I am going to focus mainly on blockchain, but you have many other exponential technologies that are changing the world very fast, and this change is going so fast that those of us who are reluctant to change are having a hard time to adapt to that change. So blockchain is one of those exponential technologies that are, in my view, changing everything. But there are other factors that are making these challenges more acute. For example, we have the regulatory pressure. In the insurance sector, it exists. This regulatory pressure is increasing, and it is very likely to keep increasing. And then we have our clients. We have digital natives, those who feel comfortable on the internet, those who are online and who have an online life. They book their trips, they call taxis, they make phone calls, everything on the internet. So digital natives are very, very demanding, and they change very fast. They have very little patience when it comes to change. And then we have the new tech. That's fintech, insurtech, all this Alibaba, Facebook, etc. All these agents that are technological businesses that want to put an end to traditional business, and they're saying, well, I can do things differently thanks to technologies, because I have those exponential technologies that allow me to change everything. And in my perspective, this creates a situation where we have everyone competing against everyone. It's a civil war of everyone, all against all. So we used to have some very clearly defined circuits, and we could be more gentlemanish, so as to speak. We have the insurance sector, the banking sector, everyone works in their business, and we didn't have to look outside our sector. But technology, in my view, changes and shuffles the deck. So the cards are dealt again. So if you want to be in the game, you think, well, if I can make more than what I have in my card, the card that has been dealt, I'm going to try to make more. And this is happening very fast, and it's making all companies to turn into, and well, in my view, this happens in the insurance sector too, have to become technological companies. Technology becomes part of the core of the business operations, and the historic strengths become weaknesses. That's a general trend. Now we're going to talk about blockchain, but I want to explain how blockchain is connected to all of this. And this is connected to the origin of blockchain, and it affects the insurance company. It's the monetary policies. Another of the challenges, and we're going to go back to these challenges, is that for many years we have had very low rates interest rates, and this makes the operations of any financial business like a banking sector very hard because you have to make a margin. So this is the situation, and this is a challenge for businesses, for anyone who works as a manager, CEO, or a professional. However, I think this can be an opportunity too, because it's an opportunity that allows us to do something. Since the structures need to be swifter and faster, that's an opportunity for talent. So people who have initiative, who want to do things, this is the perfect environment because businesses are going to have to compete increasingly for talent globally. And I think this is an opportunity. This is the environment that we are in. Now we're going to talk about the blockchain environment. This slide is 3 years old, but I still use it because I think it represents the story of where we're coming from. When I started talking about this 3 years ago, we had to beg in Spain or in Madrid, we have to beg people to allow us to talk about blockchain because people were not interested. People were like, what's this freaky thing that these guys want to talk about? This is an IT craziness. So we tried to convince businesses, companies, and we were knocking on doors saying, we need to talk about this, we need to talk about this. But then suddenly in 2017, it became a hype. People were knocking on our doors, and the way we explained this 3 years ago when we were trying to raise awareness was as follows. We made a parallel. Do you remember how internet was a revolution? You used to make phone calls that were paid, now you make them for free. Do you remember how you would go to travel agents? And now there are no travel agencies anymore. You can do everything online. Do you remember how you would go to a newsstand to buy your newspaper but now you read everything online? Well, all those things that have changed in the last 25 years through a technology that was based on open standards to democratize information sharing and to allow information sharing without censorship everywhere in the world, all of this was based on information internet. And this allowed us to share files, etc. Technically, internet is just sending information or data packs in a decentralized way. But if someone said, I have a technology that allows you to send data in a decentralized way, you'd be like, okay, yeah, it's a peer-to-peer network and that's no big deal, nothing new. But in the last 25 years, we have learned that this changed our world drastically. Someone from the 90s wouldn't recognize the life that we have nowadays. Just having a cell phone in your hand and being able to call people in the US, New Zealand, and communicate with everyone for free because we're using our data. So, all of these things that happened in the last 25 years, well, the metaphor here is that the internet of value internet that is based on blockchain may cause the same thing. We have open standards that allow us to move value without censors everywhere in the world, censorship. Just as we used to be able to just as we were able to start moving information decentralized in a decentralized way without censorship, now we will be able to do the same thing with value. So where will this lead us to? We don't know the transformation will be as huge as the internet, but what we are thinking is that this may be the third digital wave for businesses. So this is our hypothesis for the future, and from a functional perspective, we sometimes refer to blockchain as the truth machine. And differently from what we all know, we trust centralized systems or entities that tell us what the truth is. With blockchain, we have a format that allows us to find truth in a distributed way, and this is a metaphor that it's going to run throughout my presentation. Imagine that all of you are computers, and you download a software and you're interconnected as a network, and you will be able to find truth commonly. So from a technical perspective, blockchain is a network of computers that manage a transactional database that is open to the public. We're going to define what open to the public means. There are different perspectives. So what we need are mathematics, cryptography, and the community. Then we will talk about the community in further detail. As I was saying a while ago, we all come from a centralized world, and when we talk about centralization, I am going back to the Industrial Revolution. In the Industrial Revolution, we saw how, all our systems are based on the Industrial Revolution, and they copy the military system. Just as in the military we have the colonels, lieutenants, etc. Well, in companies we have CEOs, managers, etc. These structures are scalable. They work pretty well because they make it easy to organize work and make it massive. But there are other movements, like the movement of decentralization. In my view, blockchain is part of decentralization. In this decentralization movement, one of the key aspects is open source and free software. Open software, open code. It's used in our companies. There are many examples. For example, if you use a browser, like Firefox, it's open source. If you access websites, 1/3 of those websites are based on WordPress, which is open source. There are companies that use that software that is community created, but it doesn't belong to anyone because there are licenses that allow everyone to use it. So blockchain is very much in line with this open source and free software examples. For example, we also have Wikipedia. There's a centralized way of managing information, but people who contribute to managing the information in Wikipedia is global. So there's a community that is maintaining Wikipedia. This is another movement where instead of having hierarchical structures, you have more horizontal structures where everyone cooperates to find a way of doing things. And that's what we're going to explain now. But before elaborating on this, I'm going to give you the example and the reference, and I'm going to try to shed light on the most obscure things or facts. Some people ask, what's Bitcoin about? What are the advantages and disadvantages? And blockchain is very much related to this because it's related. It was created in connection with Bitcoin. If you go to a bank, we have Cesar here. Cesar is going to be we're going to use him for example. Cesar has 5,000 euro in his bank account. Why does Cesar think that he has 5,000 euro in his bank account? Well, from a banking point of view, let's assume there are 3 reasons why he believes this. First, he trusts the bank. I don't know, maybe the brand, the reputation, the history of the bank. They have large buildings, which makes me feel confident. Okay, so I trust my bank. But probably Cesar also feels that his bank is going to be able to ensure that the balance in his bank account is going to be correct and that a hacker won't be able to change that number from 5,000 to 500. And Cesar also believes that if his bank doesn't behave well, there will be a regulating authority that will make sure that the bank responds. So there's a centralized, there's a structure. There's a structure that ensures or makes Cesar believe that the bank is going to behave, and that if it doesn't behave, there will be the regulatory authority behind it. So in the Bitcoin world, this is changed drastically. In the Bitcoin world, when we talk about decentralized structures, what do we have? Well, we imagine that all of you here in this room are computers, and as computers, when you want to participate in the Bitcoin network, what do? Well, you download the Bitcoin software, you download it, And when you download that software in your computer, a couple of things happen. First, you are downloading the historic database of all the historic transactions that were done in Bitcoin since January 3rd, 2009. So it's an ever-growing database, and there's a problem with scalability there. But when this happens, you can use a communication protocol. From a technical perspective, this protocol only means that you can talk to the rest of the computers that are nodes to communicate with each other. So how much does Cesar have? Pedro may think, Cesar, who is my friend, he doesn't have 5,000, he has 10,000, 100,000 euro. And Marina may say, no, I don't like Cesar, so he only has 100. When you get a centralized system like a bank, there's one single entity that says how much Cesar have. But in a decentralized system, you can all say how much Cesar has. That system doesn't work because everyone's giving an opinion about what the balance is. And the problem of having everyone giving opinions about how much Cesar has in the technical world is called a double expense issue. In a decentralized system, it's impossible to avoid that an asset is spent twice. How can I avoid Pedro saying that he has 100,000 and Marina saying that he only has 100? How can we all agree? How can we refer to this as the truth machine? This problem of double expense was solved by Satoshi Nakamoto, who was one of the inventors. It's just a pseudonym. He solved this computational system, the problem of double expense. He also solved another problem, which is the Byzantine generators. And that's how he solved it. And that's the other large explanation that would take 2 hours. You have different agents that are cooperating. Those of you are verifying all the transactions, and you all have to agree on what the balance is. When you hear this, you're going to think that this is very complicated and it doesn't work. Well, it has been working for 10 years. It's almost 10 years old, 10 and a half years old. And so far, no one has found a way to overturn this system. All the bitcoins that are issued in the market, 19 million, if we multiply them by the market price, which is $8,000 nowadays, that makes it very interesting to put an end to the system. There are many interests in overturning the system, but no one has been able to do it. So what I'm interested in is how this is used. What are the applications of blockchain in your businesses? Well, the pioneers in seeing the opportunities of this was the banking sector. And this is very interesting because since the financial crisis in 2008, the banking sector has different fronts. On the one hand, there's the financial crisis, there's also pressure on this front. Then we have insurtech and all those technological initiatives that want to take their business away. But there's this concern. What will my future be like? Will I have a future? And the most intelligent banks are clear on the fact that they won't keep existing as a bank, as banks are conceived nowadays. Banking organizations are obsolete currently. And this current context is giving an opportunity for intelligent banks that can look into the future to start including these technologies and to use their strength and their clients to see how to reinvent themselves, because they know that in 10, 15, 20 years their current business is going to disappear. What's going to happen in the future? What will banks be like? Well, they will be different. And banks who are in this trend are really investing in exponential technologies, and blockchain is one of the technologies that they're investing in. And in my view, there's another reason that they are investing in. The vision of Satoshi Nakamoto when he created this digital cash was for it to work without intermediaries. And when we talk about not having intermediaries or middlemen, is because all this network of nodes and must participate in managing this network. From a banking perspective, this is not interesting. If you wanna be an intermediary or a middle person, it's something that I'm not interested in. But what I'm interested in is, well, I want to have my intermediaries disappear because I have intermediaries that are getting part of my business. So whenever I issue stock values, they get 70%. So if these controllers of centralized processes could disappear and I could create new platforms with decentralized systems, I'm interested in that. Or if I have clearing and settlement houses that allow me to avoid the historic intermediaries or middle people, that's interesting for me. So what are the banks doing? They're saying, well, I don't want to disappear as an intermediary, but I want my intermediaries to disappear. So this is in this what I was referring to as a civil war of all against all, because the cards are going to be dealt again. And since I don't know where I will be, I need to be very attentive. Who is going to take away my business and what will my business be? Because I don't know what will happen in the future. These are some aspects, and this can help make internet a less centralized system, because in the government or Google are making internet a more centralized thing. But I'm talking about applications that, well, we're in a very initial stage, because there has been such a hype that expectations were very high, and the technological reality is down here. What does this mean? I say this because I want to encourage people investing in exponential technologies. In Spain, we have a tendency to being conservative, and we don't do things until the Americans do it. I want to encourage you to do it, because although there's a gap between expectations and the present reality, what I think it's true is that all businesses are going to change dramatically. And if we want to be organizations that survive into the future, we need to be in these exponential technologies that are going to change our businesses and our lives as professionals, because the professions that we have, the way they exist now, probably will disappear in this future, near or far future. This is one of the statements. In the insurance sector, there are many questions, open questions. Here you have an example that it's typically given to the insurance sector. If you purchase, you book a flight, and there's a delay. Well, if there's a delay, there should be a compensation payment or paid directly, automatically to the travelers. So all these processes that used to be very paper-based and cumbersome can become automatic. So this is what companies are working on. But first, I'm going to tell you what the two large worlds are within the blockchain world. Here, I don't know why this is not visible, but there was a Bitcoin symbol here. I'm going to tell you the story of Bitcoin in terms of prices, because all of this is very much connected to something. Maybe you're wondering something. Maybe you're wondering why the price of this asset is so volatile. The price of Bitcoin at the beginning of 2011, it existed since 2009. So one Bitcoin was around $1, and then it went up to $30. And around that year, it went from $1 to $30, because there's an American magazine called Docker that explained how to buy illegal drugs online. So a whole bunch of American of American young people were like, "Oh, Bitcoin is great. You can buy illegal drugs with Bitcoin." So and that gave a really bad press because it was associated to the deep web and to those transactions. So then it went down. At the beginning of 2013, the price went down to 20, and it went up to 2,230 with the Cyprus crisis. From there, it went down to $50, and at the end of that year, it was $1,200. It started the year at $20, and it went to $1,200. Then it went down to $200. And that minimum of 200 in 2015 went up to, it finished 2017 at 20,000. So 2017 it started at 1,000 and it finished the year at 20,000. 4 months ago the price was 3,000 and right now it's 8,000. And it almost reached 9,000 a couple of years ago. So there's an asset, Bitcoin, that is very volatile. So this asset that is negotiated in this net has brought about a series of people that said, well, I don't believe in the centralized system the way we have it nowadays. Some of these people were big fans of this and were storing bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies in their wallets. And maybe you had someone who was making 1,000 years working from 9 to 6 and became millionaires. IT people mostly, many retired, and many others were saying, well, I have all this money and I'm going to invest it in decentralized economy. That created a system of people who believe that there's a trustworthy public system that will make it possible to reinvent the economy, and they have created different layers on how to reinvent this.
The interesting thing here is the third layer, decentralized protocols, where the idea is that they can be used systems that can decentralize everything. The same way we have a Dropbox that is centralized, or Amazon website, that we can do these same systems decentralized. You are all interconnected computers among yourselves, and you can offer the world capacities to store in your computers and share with the whole world. And in the case of blockchain, there is a project called Filecoin with $270 million in 2017 to start that project. The storage and distribution of information without middlemen. So they are trying to do things to create Airbnb, Uber, eBay, decentralized. Data value nothing because they have used all that bubble of speculation in cryptocurrency to start marketing projects to collect that money. But why am I telling you this? This is very important to understand, because this world is not the world of the ordinary startups, but with hormones, because you have the whole planet speculating about this, making possible the financing of this type of projects, and even in the great majority of them are failures. If one single of them is a success, the impact is going to be enormous, because then a lot of crazy ideas are going to start and appear. So what about public blockchains? Basically, the type of people that were interested in this were freakies. People that were interested in technologies, a minority group in the beginning. Money came from the world of speculation, because this world allowed to accrue resources, and the objective is to decentralize economy. This means disruption, and when I talk about disruption, I'm talking about the status quo, the world as we know it today. We want to end with it, and we want to create a new one. If we want to translate that into the insurance companies as they work today, we want to end up with their system. We want to create a new format about how to make insurance, and that can apply to all businesses. Is this going to be true or not? I don't know. But that's the dynamics we are involved right now. It is very important not to see it in a negative manner. It is the same idea that Silicon Valley has, disruption through technology, as Google or Facebook that have become in mammoth monopolies. All these protocols are such more or less the same, but in a global scale. So that's the world we are right now. And then we have the DLT world. This is quite different from blockchain, because in blockchain world we have one single net, no matter where you are, whether you are located in Spain, in Sudan, Sweden, or North Korea. As long as you have internet access, you can access the net. So nothing needs more than that. But DLT is different. In a DLT, I would say half of the room, all those hours closer to me, belong part to my DLT net, and those of you at the back cannot be part of the DLT net. And those who are in the first row, you will validate the transactions that we perform in our net. In a very oversimplified way, that's what it does. I call it DLT because if you look down, blockchain nets are called permissionless because everybody can participate without any kind of permission, but DLT chains are permissioned because you have to require for a permission to enter them. So these are blockchains that are of private nature. So I think it's best to make a clear distinction among the concepts because they are not the same. The same way that we have here the freaky world with the disruption of technology in the world, in DLT where we have are mostly big multinationals that invest through their employees in technological projects of DLT to make process to optimize their sources, save costs. So what I'm doing fine, I'm going to try and perfection it through this DLT. On the left, what they want is complete disruption of the world as we know it today, and DLT is, no, I want to do what I do, but better. So what's the next challenge? Blockchain world, freakish world, knows that they're in need of the mainstream world to get to what their aspiration, but DLT also needs that because creativity provides money and the mass of people around these people moves is more active in the blockchain world. So they're trying to come to terms, they are trying to find a compromise. Or my hypothesis is that we already know that we have to reinvent ourselves, but as I don't know how to do that, I need to cooperate with this type of crazy projects to see how they're going to have an effect on my business. Or how can I reinvent myself using some of their tools in my own business? So within this world, we can find a lot of things in DLT. I personally recommend to look at Hyperledger. This is a consortium led by Linux. Linux is one of the main softwares in the world of open source, used in back office and servers. It's one of the most serious projects because on the left we had a hype on DLT and blockchain and they are fighting one another about what is the appropriate terminology we should use. By Hyperledger, if you're interested, is very much the one I recommend you to take a look. It's a serious initiative in the DLT world. So as I said, there are three big lines: public blockchains, private blockchains, and hybrid blockchains that I'm going to comment right now. How this is shared. Public blockchain, free access for everyone. Everyone can read everything that happens there. And validation, which is the mining part in blockchain world, is the variation of blocks, is also published. Anyone can take part. Down, we have the permission DLT, where access is private, only can be viewed by those I choose, and the other one, the validate, is private. For example, if it is as if Spanish banks created a consortium of DLT, BBVA, Santander, La Caixa, and any other banks. And among them all, we create this consortium to middlemanize this process. And there's a hybrid where access is public, everybody can read, but validation of everything that is going on is with identified nodes. If you see in public area, everybody can read everything that happens in the database, everybody can become a node. But in a permissioned, only those chosen, and in a hybrid, it would be more or less the same. Within consortium, I would say the first 3 rows can be nodes within my net, but everybody can look what is going on within my net. That's the main reason why Satoshi Nakamoto, when he creates Bitcoin and other nets that are more or less similar, in public nets, the element that you really need of is a token. And token is the account unit, is the one that fluctuates. And this is not necessary in a permission net, because then nodes are completely identified. I know who the nodes are, whether the permission or the hybrid are identified like this, but not in the public one. So I need the game theory that is achieved through those tokens so that it can work. That's a brief explanation. Why am I telling you this? So that you can have a clear picture on ideology. It is very important because I have several challenges, I face several challenges in understanding different positions, because what happens to me is that I work in both worlds, in this world and in the other one. And I cover both things. And what I've been learning through the passing of time is that the important thing is not technology, but the vision of the world you may have. What do they think in blockchain? They want red or governments that are more decentralized, anonymous or pseudonym nodes, because they don't trust in institutions, and we don't trust in institutions, they don't trust governments, corporations, they don't trust anybody. They want censor resistance products and decentralized. There's the most extreme version or the most pure version of Bitcoin. And on the other side, we can find those who say, I trust corporations, I trust governments. So if I have all this, I don't need anonym nodes or game of theories. But what I need, technological advancements that are coming through, maybe it would help me to reinvent my business as it happens today, or I have to adapt through technological adaptation. This means that in most things, if we have ancient procedures or banks that work with legacy technologies from 40, 50 years ago. Well, if I can do that in a blank slate and reinvent, how would I work? Why cannot I improve what I'm doing up to this moment? But what has happened in different departments, in technologies, within all this transformation wave, is that my board of directors have not provided me with a budget to re-update or re-innovate what we are doing. There is a bank where they said, the president of the company said, we have to implement this new process. That's the Bible. And it has taken us 6 months. The person that is working in the cloud, everything starting from zero, only takes him less time. And there is no way we can do it any quicker. It's just that our structure, the starting point is much worse. They do not allow us with these directions, with these directives to work faster. So depending on where you're moving in this whole cycle, you're going to find DLT technology is going to be more appealing to you, or a blockchain. But the important thing as well is that there is a lot of money, there is a lot of marketing as well. So there are many projects that are called blockchains that actually are not like that. They just do that for advertising purposes. And other projects that are more close to blockchains than they actually want to admit. But the important thing is that if you look at this type of aspects, look at the architecture of the projects. What level of centralization you want want to achieve, and what type of organization do you really want to run. An article that we wrote a year ago, you can see that link, where I explain a little more in detail believers in DLT and believers in blockchain. The Internet of Value. What have we historically learned? That the protocol layer, TLSP, all different protocols you are familiar with, there is no value, because normally big companies or governments finance this to create standards, but above that we could have the application layer, goodwills, etc. What's the hypothesis for the future? Is that the protocol layer may be bigger or more flexible. If we have nets like Bitcoin and Ethereum and other types of nets, they can have value using the example of oil. If we have oil up to 1,850, the value was zero because there was no demand for oil because it was not used. In 1850, we have kerosene lamps, and then now we have a global economy from that moment that totally depends on oil, and then oil becomes something full of price. We have a commodity that's seen to see, but when we talk about technologies, if we create that application layer, decentralized application layer, or Spotify, Airbnb, Uber, decentralized, or any other thing decentralized, and we really accrue the value, we will need to go for the protocol layer, which are those tokens like the machinery, the gasoline that makes this machine work. This is going beyond to what we're seeing today, going beyond the speculation moment we're living that could really revalue or provide it with more value. 99% of activity could go this way. But this hasn't happened up to this moment. But it does not mean to say that it's not going to happen in the future. All this speculation, maybe, may help some of these projects to really fulfill the expectations. Part of what I was saying is from the blockchain point of view, but also at corporational level, which, by the way, has got my attention a lot. From 2017 to 2019, everybody's so focused in blockchain world, which from my point of view makes no sense, because the challenge we're facing is that many times there is no knowledge. And many models, business models, how can we move that into blockchain? But we're not knowledgeable about blockchain. So this is like the magical hammer, blockchain for everything. Why? Because on the one hand, it makes me look good, it makes me look modern, to fulfill expectancies, as for playing, toying with technologies. But what people devote less time to do is to learn, to have knowledge, to be knowledgeable. Let us not about the final application, but let's try to really understand the technologies that are the basis, the background of what we are doing. And later on, maybe we can think about ideas how to project that into the business that we're running. In traditional business, that's a problem. Investment horizons are 1 year, 2 years time. But we're talking about 3, 4, 5, or even longer. Or even the horizon investment is, okay, I'm gonna learn a lot about this because this may be a disruption in my business, so that's why it's so important for me to be updated. Let us not put a horizon in time. In the insurance world, the most famous thing, quite probably you're all familiar with, is B3I, which is a consortium of reassurances. They're toying with many of these things, and that's a good way to go. But in the long term, to learn about insurance, about how to be more knowledgeable about blockchain. Another topic that for me is also fundamental, and if we take Bitcoin, which was decentralized money, then Ethereum came, which are decentralized applications, and Sovereign and other protocols want to be decentralized identity. There is an insurance company that I work with in this topic, Irish Life, from Ireland. It really caught my attention because they're on the first level in all this world. And they collaborate with Evernym. And what they did was to create a code 4 years ago that was donated to Sovereign, which is a net, permission net, hybrid actually, and Sovereign donated its code to Hyperledger Indy. This is what I recommend you to take a look at it, because this Hyperledger Indy is where you can find the world change world on how users and people are going to be use their identities so that they own their information, and it's not companies that own the data of users. So what I'm saying is that for cyber safety, people want to put information out of their companies because it's very expensive and risky to store all that information, and governments through standards are pushing into the direction that we have to fulfill more strict requisites. And on the other hand, users want to decide when you have information to their data and you can monetize that. I'm talking about Facebook. I give you all this for free, but you are the product with your information. So there is a change of paradigm. And through blockchain, this is something that the digital identity is being applied. So from my point of view, the challenge, the biggest challenge to understand the situation, and I find this very often, is that if you're interested in learning about this, I very much recommend you forget everything you know and start from scratch, blank slate. And how I would devise, how I would design things. People that are thinking about this, how are they thinking about it? Why are they devising things in a way? And from my point of view, for the world of digital transformation, this is key because all our organizations are destined to suffer or enjoy of the different possibilities of digital change. But if we want to take profit from digital change, each and every one of us, in the form of nodes, each person, we have to make this process of transformation, of inner transformation, in order to understand how to operate in this new world that is being building up. To learn about decentralization, I recommend you these 3 books that are not related to blockchains. The first one is very good. It provides you all type of decentralization. The other one is more a historic approach. And the third one is the personal choice of mine from the Hawk Visa founder, based on biological principles. He tried to create in Visa a decentralized structure following the biology's principles and how this could function in the world. This book was written in the year 2000, by the way. For those who want to learn more, there are 3 resources. Cesar mentioned this before. I'm one of the founders of blockchain in Spain that is to promote the use of this type of technology in Spain. And I also work in Alianza Blockchain, Iberoamerica, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Panama, Mexico and Spain are cooperating together. And you have 3 free resources, Comunidad Blockchain, that you can find in PDF format. El Libro de Satoshi is a book that summarizes the book of Satoshi in the time he was active, if you can have an idea of his philosophy. I have it in Kindle and somewhere else. And then we also publish a report, Decentralized Digital Identity, also for free, PDF. As Cesar mentioned 2 years ago, we presented our book that became the reference book in blockchain in Spain and written in Spanish. It is now in its 8th edition. As for identity, in the Anglo-Saxon world, I run Sign Meetup, which is a community to exchange knowledge on this type of project. And it has become also in a benchmark in this sense. And we're also working in a new book that is going to appear in the United States called Decentralized Digital Identity. I have 10 minutes for questions, so I'll be pleased to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex. As the father of my wife used to say, how funny was the universe. Now looking at you, and I feel some vertigo, I have a spill. We're experiencing a world that is going to help us to do many things, but also is going to provide us with new risks. And we have to find ways to manage these new risks. Thank you so much for introducing us to these new technologies. So now, the audience, you have the floor so that you can ask your questions. Take profit from this opportunity because this is the expert in Spain in blockchain is here before you.
Hola, buenos días.
Good morning. I would like to see, do you think that in the coming future you can have a function in your official identity and digital identity? How is it going to evolve? I love this question. Blockchain world is very complex, but identity, digital identity is even more complex. I've only been studying this world for 2 years because normally it happens exactly what you're saying. When we think in identity, we only think about bureaucratic identity, my passport, my ID. That's the identity of my country, the one provided by my government. But actually my identity is much more than that. It's practically everything we do during our day. In my example, I woke up this morning, I haven't seen my children, but my children and my wife are part of my identity. It's the family unit. But my work is also part of my identity because it's where I go to every day, it's the people I relate to. Everything I do online is also part of my identity, but also my activities. On the one hand, my professional part is part of my identity, but I also have another life, playing basketball, playing golf, or any other thing I do, reading books, that's part of my identity. So your identity is the summation of all these aspects. So from the point of view of the digital identity, SSI is the technical name. The SSI world is the term that has been used. Your identity is not only your passport, or is the red tape world. When we think about bureaucracy, it only has 100 years of existence. In fact, in the same passports that were issued were basically for diplomats or very specific cases when people was free to travel. The world as we know it today is really a new world within the context of humanity. So digital identity, what is it? Everything you do during your life, but right now is in different places, in Mafre, Facebook, Google, and corporations with decentralized digital identity are going to be pushed into the directions, and governments are also going to push in the direction so that we have systems where our credentials, that is the technical term, you can say, well, I have an insurance with Mafre. Mafre can credit in a decentralized manner that I have it. They can issue cryptographically safe a credential that I have that I'm a policy holder for my home or third-party laws, and that I can use that digital credential to share it with other person, but maybe not through Mafre itself, and I can own that credential. So in the physical world, it's very simple. I receive the contract, I hold it, but in the digital world, how can I make that possible that I'm the owner? So through CSSI, we are using DLT structures as a base so that corporations, on the one hand, that are the issuers or governments, can issue these credentials so that you have the policy holder can have a digital portfolio where they can load their credentials, and you have verifiers that can be governments and corporations that can really check for that information. So as I said before, cybersecurity may be an important factor, or legal, or demand in the market can really push for new needs. The market is demanding for these things, especially the northern ones. And in the European world, they are requiring that privacy, that we can really decide who we want to share and when to share our information. I don't know if you've seen something that caught my attention. There was an ad of Apple where the slogan of the ad is privacy. And I think that's a great movement right now, great trend. Microsoft and Apple are betting on privacy because they are seen as the Trojan horse to combat Google, because Google sends our information. But they don't live from this. If I want to weaken my concurrency, what I'll do is, and I also have a new model for the future. Microsoft, I think the 12th of May, announced that they have created a technology with a second layer on Bitcoin to create digital identification systems that are decentralized, because that's the future. It's a total turn into open source, free software, and decentralization, because they see a way to reinvent themselves. Even traditional technological companies need to reinvent themselves as well. Good morning. My question is, how can we have at the same time these new technologies with the legal reality currently? Bitcoin currency are a reality that is not legal. I'm talking about the treasury or the exchequer. Are we really trudging a dangerous track? Is legal, not illegal, but legal? Can you tell us how can we complement both realities? I'm going to reply at two different levels. On the one hand, on a personal title, what I think and the popular perception that, from my point of view, is wrong many times. My personal opinion is that there is no problem, because basically the problem, as with any other asset, if you buy bitcoins, you buy it at 1,000 and sell them to 10,000, you have an earning of 9,000. So you declare that to the treasury, full stop, as in any other thing else. If you buy houses or metals or whatever. What's the problem? That it seems that there are many people who have bought cryptocurrency and haven't followed that procedure of clearing that to the treasury. That's one thing. And from my point of view, there is a popular misunderstanding, somehow boosted by the press, that bitcoins and cryptocurrency can be used as tools to tax evasion or to finance terrorism. From that point of view, this is not real, but that's part of that cycle of lack of knowledge, because from my point of view, Bitcoin, as it is structured today, is the most attractive system. If you imagine a world where cash is no longer existent and that all money is digital, for the treasury is the best system in the world. For the government, because all transactions are public, everything you would ever do all the time would be totally public, because everything can be tracked. And applying big data and artificial intelligence, it's even better for governments. So it's true, there are projects that are creating this type of solutions as cryptocurrencies and bitcoins that are totally anonymous, but Bitcoin is not. But from my point of view, if we have, and I know this because I have indirect contact with inspectors or government officials or politicians or journalists who talk about this, many times they talk from hearsay, from the headlines, but not being really knowledgeable. And another totally different issue, from my personal point of view, to demystify something, there is a very important investor called Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz. So it's a very big company in the United States, and he says the tool to whitewash things are American dollars. So Bitcoin is irrelevant. It's very petty. It doesn't mean to say that it may not change in the future, but in the big echelon of things, that's a different thing. So it's marginal thing. All the rest of things are happening in a very way much more important than Bitcoin. What is going to be the future? I don't know. But what I suggest is that we have to understand technologies in the case of Bitcoin. That's why they're called public. Reading access is public for everyone, but also for the government, for the exchequer. And validation is also public. So these are technologies that are going into that direction. And I think it's more a matter of learning about technologies.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So, Alex, thank you very much. I want to remind that after the second presentation, during the coffee break, you can talk to Alex and we can use that time to ask him questions.